On the edge of a quiet village nestled between rolling hills and whispering forests lived a one-eyed fox named Liro. Unlike the other foxes who thrived on their speed, cunning, and perfect vision, Liro had lost one eye in a childhood accident, a careless leap over a thorn-covered ditch that left him scarred and forever marked as different. From then on, Liro was whispered about, laughed at by the younger cubs, and quietly pitied by the elders. But Liro didn't retreat. Each morning, while the others slept in their cozy dens, he wandered alone through the forest. He had to learn the hard way, how to balance himself with limited depth perception, how to trust his hearing and smell more than his sight, how to predict dangers he could no longer see. At first, he stumbled often. He'd misjudge distances, fall into puddles, or crash into bushes. But he kept going. Years passed, and Liro grew into a strong adult fox. The others had forgotten about his struggles, barely noticing him as he moved quietly among them. Until the winter that changed everything. A snowstorm rolled in one night without warning. Blinding winds howled across the valley, covering tracks and burrowing deep into the forest's usual paths. The storm was unlike any the village had seen in years. Food became scarce. The younger foxes, who had only ever known easy winters, began to starve. Even the elders struggled to find their usual hunting trails, now buried beneath layers of snow and ice. Panic set in. The packs began to fragment, each group trying to survive on its own. But they all hit the same wall: the snow was too thick, the air too cold, and every trail led nowhere. It was Liro who stood quietly at the edge of the forest, looking at the swirling snow with a knowing gaze. While the others saw only confusion, he noticed patterns: the way the wind always bent the tops of certain trees, the subtle rise of land that suggested the path to the river, even when buried. The forest, wild and hidden, whispered to him in ways others had never learned to hear. One by one, foxes came to him, desperate and cold. At first, they asked questions. Where was the stream? Where were the mice trails? Liro answered quietly. Then they began to follow him. He moved through the forest with a quiet confidence, weaving through trees and snowdrifts, finding food in places no one else thought to look. By the end of that terrible winter, Liro had guided not just his own kind, but others too: rabbits, birds, even a limping badger, through the snow to food, warmth, and survival. Word of the one-eyed fox spread beyond the village, into nearby forests and valleys. He was no longer whispered about as a failure. He was remembered as the fox who could see what others could not. When spring arrived, green bursting through the white, the others tried to thank him, to offer him praise and gifts. But Liro only nodded once and returned to his quiet wandering. He had no interest in being a hero. He had never needed anyone to tell him his worth. Many seasons later, a young cub with a limp approached Liro, curious and hopeful. The others had started to mock him, just as they had mocked Liro long ago. He asked, "Do you think I can be strong, even like this?" Liro looked at the cub for a long moment and said, "Strength isn't in what you start with. It's in what you learn to use when everything else is taken from you." The cub stared up at him, silent for a moment, before nodding and falling into step beside him. The forest never stopped being wild. The winters never stopped coming. But those who had once dismissed the broken or different now watched more carefully, understanding at last that wisdom, resilience, and vision didn't always come with two eyes. The lesson is this: what makes you different may feel like a weakness, but in truth, it may become your greatest strength, if you're willing to keep moving forward, even when no one else sees what you see.